It's the internet, you're busy, so let's do this. Welcome to the GamesBeat Decides podcast. This is the podcast where we decide everything about the world of games so you don't have to do it yourselves. I'm your host, Jeffrey Grubb. With me, Cavs fan number one, Mike Minotti.
That's right. It's me. It's Mike Minotti. Go Cleveland. It's a good city for sports.
It's a good
Actually,
city.
I still like do things like haha yay go sports, but I actually do like sports a lot. So it's funny, especially my Cleveland teams.
And it's especially a good city for sports these days, at least. Last couple of years.
Yeah, they actually have some good teams. I mean, the Browns are almost hilariously bad at this point, so it's almost better than if they were just mediocre in a way.
Yeah, exactly. It's still interesting. At least you can at least die hard alongside
There's something
them.
happening.
In today's episode, we're going to go over the week's news. We're going to preview Nintendo at E3, and that pretty much wraps up our coverage. Next week, we're going to come back with some more kind of a more roundup sort of feature for E3. We probably should do that thing we talked about a few weeks back where we talk about the past E3s and our favorite moments from those.
Oh, man.
I've been thinking about a couple.
How many have you done now?
Not a ton. I guess
my
fourth.
I mean, I must have done 6 or 7. The first one I went to was the year that they had like the 3DS there for the first time, whatever that was.
I tell you what,
maybe 2010.
Yeah. So how many is it for you total? Do you know?
Well, I went to that. I think I missed one. There was like one I didn't go, and that's it. So it must be like 6 or 7, maybe 7. It's been a bunch now. It's to the point where like it is starting to blur together.
Yeah, my ADHD manifests in a very specific way where my time exists 2 days in the past, 2 days in the future. Anything outside of that radius is just a big blur. So I can't plan ahead, and everything but happens in the past all kind of happen in the same amorphous blob. So I have to actually go back and look at a calendar and piece together my life, memento style, to figure out how many E3s I've been to. But it's probably like 5. I think you might have been to at least 1 or 2 more than me at this point. Yes. Before we kind of get on to the news and the games that we've been playing and whatever else, I want to thank everyone for joining us. You can get more from me and Mike at GamesBeat.com. If you have something to share with us, email the podcast at gamespluspodcast@VentureBeat.com. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and anything else. Finally, if you like the show, get on that Apple podcast app and give us a 5-star review. Mike, we don't have a ton of games that we've been playing. I think it's starting to get to a point where we're probably still kind of playing some older games, but for the most part, I'm starting.
I've been playing a lot of the same games.
And then also I'm kind of ramping up for E3, where I'm beginning to get hesitant to start a new big game. I'm thinking,
I know what you mean.
Maybe I could pull off one more. Maybe if I did go pick up Nier right now, I could squeeze it in before E3, but it's getting to the point where
the first ending at least.
Yeah, it's going to start giving me a little bit of stress if I start thinking about starting a new game. So, of course, I did start at least 2 new games. One of them is Vanquish, which is actually an old game, but it's one we've been talking about for a few weeks now. Sega bringing back some of these old classics.
Yeah, it's kind of known for its brevity, right? So that's fine.
Right, and I actually still haven't finished it just because I have been playing so many other older games that still playing PUBG a lot.
And you're bad at games too, so it takes you a little bit longer.
Well, you know what? To be fair, it does have that bug. Have you heard about this? This bug that if you play
I heard about this damage bug.
Yeah, and if you played at a frame rate higher than 30 frames per second, anywhere from 30 to 60, and then it caps at 60, but you still experience it at higher frame rates, damage does, attacks do more damage. So if an enemy hits you, it might send you into the automatic slowdown, slow-mo, bullet time mode because you've taken critical damage almost immediately. And it kept happening to me. I kept dying, and I'm like, man, I don't remember this game being this hard. I'm playing on normal. Maybe it's the keyboard and mouse. I did a video for GamesBeat, and I posted it on the site, and in the video, I'm like, oh, I'm getting used to the keyboard and mouse. That's why I keep fucking up. That's why I'm so terrible at this game right now.
Turns out.
Yeah. Turns out I had a better excuse than that. Yeah. I guess, there's some other games that have a lot of stuff like
that. It's shipped with that?
No, I don't. As long as they fix it relatively quickly, I don't really care too much. To be fair, I guess I did get the code, so if I had paid $20 for it, maybe I'd feel differently. But I still think it looks really pretty. It plays really nice still. I was still enjoying it regardless of this issue. And as long as they fix it pretty quickly, I'm going to be just fine. So I've played through about half of it, and I'm going to save the other half for when it's a little bit easier. But it's still very good game. Very cool, very slick.
Yeah, I definitely want to do it now. I'm definitely going to wait now till they fix this issue, but hey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the knee slide still looks really ridiculous and dumb, and I love it. But yeah, Sega actually, you know what? They actually just did put a patch out today, and I never even checked out what it is. I wonder if that fixed it. I'll have to look it up.
I think it was like a beta patch to fix the issue, like, which is interesting. Now we have betas for patches.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
But that's what I think. That's what I heard it described as.
Yeah, I was wondering if I was gonna.
It's a brave new world.
Yep, exactly. Okay, well, either way, I'll check that out. Maybe report back next week and see if there's anything different. But you've been playing another sort of old thing, but it's in a new packaging. What have you been up to this week?
Well, I've been playing the Elder Scrolls Online. The Morrowind early access thing is out now. I haven't played a whole ton of it, really. I would like to play more, especially with a different circumstance, because I was playing it with my brother, and we made new characters at the same time. We're trying to do everything together. It's MMOs are kind of weird, because this isn't even a criticism just for this game, but like leveling up with a friend is not really all that much fun, because they design it so you can do it by yourself. So like the other person's almost just kind of weighing you down more than anything. They're not really helping all that much. A lot of times you're like waiting for them, like, all right, you talk to this person. Are you done talking to them yet? Like, oh, I have to go sell these 5 bricks of cheese I have or whatever. And then it's like, so it's very pretty, right? You're going to Morrowind. I didn't play a ton of Morrowind, but I recognize it as this really neat place to set a fantasy.
It's got a cool setting, right? Yeah, that's what I always remember.
Yeah, it's like
about
this big. There's like, yeah, it's like fungal fantasy. It's like big insects and mushrooms everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It looks different. It's not just like Skyrim's cool, but it basically is just like Vikings there,
right?
Dragons,
yeah, something very familiar.
So, right, and this is way less familiar. And it's a very cool place. Like my brother was more nostalgic for Morrowind because he played it, and I guess like a lot of it really, it's like straight up the map from that game, a lot of the same areas and a lot of callbacks and music and stuff like that, which is neat. But like it's like these games, they're like they don't want to do here's 3 quests and they're all like go kill 5 of these things and then come back. Like
right.
They kind of want to be above that. But the problem is it feels like the alternative is just a quest sends you to go talk to somebody, and then they send you to talk to somebody else, and the quest is over. And that's a lot of quests. And a lot of it is like talk to this person, and there's these dialogue trees, kind of like you're just playing an Elder Scrolls game. But there's like 50 people around you, and your friends waiting for you, so you don't know if you want to like talk, you do those extra dialogue options.
Right.
Like you're yeah. And they refuse to do instancing, at least so far. So like you go into a dungeon, especially if it's new, there's 20 people in there, everything's dead. You just kind of walk through it. You maybe swing your sword at something. So yeah, it's still it's weird. So I guess I'm trying to say I was kind of bored.
Yeah.
But it looked real pretty. And I feel like a lot of those issues, like maybe it'd be better if you're playing by yourself, or if the game.
Which is a great thing to say about an MMO.
Right? Yeah, that's always been the thing, and that's always been, I think, my criticism of this game even before they announced it. Back when everybody's like, "We want multiplayer Elder Scrolls," I'm like, "Do you? Why? How are other people really going to help that?" And especially today's MMOs where the social aspects are so minimal, right? Like it's not like the stuff like, oh, like this is my friend, we're just kind of hanging out and going to the tavern and stuff. It used to be like that with things like Ultima Online, maybe, but now it's just like, let's get together and go through this fighting content together. So it feels like that's like playing with people will get fun at the end game when you're doing dungeons and stuff, and otherwise you're just basically playing a single player game where other people are running around. And like I said, I haven't played enough of it to really have a good grasp on it, but I don't know. It's the same thing I have with a lot of these MMOs, where I'm always eventually like, hey, maybe I should just be playing World of Warcraft. Why don't you turn the video off, Jeff?
I got some dropped frames again, so I just wanted to be careful not to have the whole video come across as choppy and stuff, or stuff like that on Facebook. Yeah, it kind of feels like that genre is in a really weird place where we've known it's been in a weird place for a long time, but for the games that are still going, you kind of hear that stuff and it's like, okay, it's what I expected it to be. It's this hurry up and wait kind of thing if you're playing with other people in certain circumstances when you're doing certain quests. And then if you're doing the high level stuff, it's still this really compelling experience. But until you're doing that, it can be kind of a slog.
Right. Yeah, and Outer Scrolls is just interesting because it's like it came out in like the end of that wave where everyone was trying to get in on that World of Warcraft money still.
Right. It was
like all these
it
things
was
were
one
put
of the
into
last
development.
ones. Yeah.
Right. It was like, yeah, you had that wave. It was like Slow Tour, Final Fantasy 14, and then this. And it's weird that out of those three, Final Fantasy 14 actually seems to be doing the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and it's like I'm sure Elder Scrolls Online is having its audience, and I think this is a cool expansion to do like such a big landmass like this. It's a very classic kind of MMO expansion, which is nice because like something like Soul Tour, their expansions are a little different. They're very story based or what have you, and so I don't know. It is just the MMO space is in this very weird place where everybody was like rushing to it for a while, and now everybody's like kind of avoiding it. Or you hear all these people making these games that promises to like revitalize it, and then when it's like EverQuest Next, they get canceled or they're kind of weird. So it's like, who knows what's going on with these MMOs.
Let me ask you though: would you rather have this or like a Morrowind HD in the vein of Skyrim HD?
Oh, I would really like to see a Morrowind HD because I kind of want to play that because, like I said, I didn't really play it back then, and I played all of Oblivion and Skyrim. I think it'd be neat to play that game now, just with some of the things like make it a little prettier, fix the UI up a little bit.
Yeah,
that's the other thing that really always kind of throws me off Elder Scrolls Online. It just has Skyrim's user interface, and it's kind of bizarre. Like everyone likes Skyrim, so I mean, it just but the Skyrim user interface was kind of designed to sort of look like that area a bit. Like the icons look a little like runic and stuff like that. And now it's just all over the place in all of Elder Scrolls, and I don't know, it seems bizarre.
Yeah, yeah, definitely a weird game. It does bum me out. Cause I know because we're getting this, that means we're not getting Morrowind HD probably anytime soon, if ever. Because why would they give you that option? They want you to go play this MMO, but whatever.
Is this cool? It's probably the best expansion they could have made. I feel like for what Elder Scrolls Online is.
Is this something you're going to stick with? You think for a little bit?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably not. Like I said, if I'm going to play one of these things, I'm just going to play Warcraft, which I have like a lot of time invested in already, and I like it a lot. And if I wasn't playing Warcraft, it'd probably be Final Fantasy 14, which I like a lot also. But there aren't enough hours in the day.
Right. Got to pick one. The other game I've been playing is Star Trek Bridge Crew. Just came out for VR. I played it a little bit on Monday night. And I think I just posted a video of my gameplay of that. And it's what you expect it to be. The single player kind of is a bit weird. So in the single player mode, which is what I played, at least on Monday, I played the multiplayer at E3 last year. You start as the captain. And you get into situations like the first one is Kobayashi Maru. Most of the time, for the most part of this mission, you're just flying around, going to different objectives before it's time to go rescue the Kobayashi Maru. And as the captain, you can give certain commands. You could get kind of down into the minutia to the point where you could say, "Hey, engage warp coils," and then actually engage warp drive, things like that. But for more specific functions of the 4 stations, where if people don't understand, this is it's a VR game where there are 4 stations. You're supposed to be playing it with 4 people, and you're supposed to be talking and communicating, saying, "Hey, there's a ship. We need to shift our power from the shields to the weapons so that we can actually take out this ship," things like that. And then the person who's over there at the engineering station has the panel out in front of them, and they can shift the power themselves manually. It's a really cool idea. When it's single player, you actually zoom over into the tactical station yourself and are doing that, and then you zoom back to the captain's chair, which I think, it works, but you could probably imagine it takes a little bit of the magic away instead of actually me just sitting in the captain's chair having that role play session.
I mean, it's kind of this issue where like the idea of like a multiplayer co-op VR game is dependent on your friends having these VR systems that are very expensive right now that a lot of people don't have.
And I think I'd even be willing to try matchmaking just because I think a certain group of people that would be willing to get a VR headset and then are
Right.
also into Star
Yeah,
Trek.
you're not
And
going to be playing with like the Halo kids, right?
yeah, I think
You
I'm
would
going to be
hope.
playing with this like a certain crowd that like wants this to work at least. That is giving a good faith effort into trying this. But matchmaking, it didn't only came out today. I tried it last night, so I'll give it another go for multiplayer. I'm sure that'll be fine, and I'm hoping we'll get to a place where that will where I could just hop into a game or actually have some friends online and try it out. For now, though, the hopping around from station to station, like I said, it works. It just wasn't super compelling. It felt kind of. I didn't feel like a captain. I didn't feel like I was actually on a member of a crew. It was just kind of like a weird game where a weird game of juggling different tasks and then going from objective to objective. But yeah, it's one that I will play the multiplayer and come back and probably report about that next
Yeah,
week.
I'm like it's definitely. I mean, just because I'm a big Star Trek fan, it's just something I'm interested in a lot.
Right. I,
I
I
want to
definitely
definitely try.
I definitely want to like just actually throw myself into it and see what it's like. But the single player, I don't imagine myself actually going much further in the single player just because it was kind of dull.
Right,
Yeah,
sure. And
and that,
you don't have a huge affinity for that franchise, right?
well, I mean, it's not Star Wars to me, but I really like Star Trek a lot. It is
Okay.
the ship I have, at least at first, is the J.J. Abrams universe Star Trek Enterprise kind of thing.
Right. And I know you
You're
kind of
you're
did
not
the
in the
like original
Enterprise.
series stuff.
Yeah, you can unlock the original series stuff. All that stuff, it appeals to me enough, and I like Star Trek enough. But it's not like I'm not gonna like geek out every time I come across every little minute detail. I'm not gonna see some name of a
Sure.
Romulan planet and like freak out or anything like that. But I like I said, I want to throw
Sure.
myself into it.
If they get some DLC next generation era ship missions, and man, oh man, I might like have to get a VR headset. I
Yeah,
might like, go all in.
I want to see. I want to try these missions in multiplayer to see if I would actually care about something like that. Because I would care more about TNG than what they have in there right now. But it's also going to just be dependent on the variety of the missions, which is just something I still don't know about yet. But that's all I've been playing. Mike, you don't have any other games this week?
Nah.
What's
I've
happening?
been playing a lot of Overwatch,
Yeah,
since
no,
a
of
lot of
course.
same things.
Yeah, no, totally.
I mean, I guess we've been playing ARMS now that I think about it.
Yeah, we did play that Arms.
But it's weird because there's like I'm not playing the global test file. I'm playing the review copy, and the preview embargo's up on the first. Even though like I'm basically playing the same thing everyone on the global test did. So very confused about what I'm allowed to talk about.
I mean, you could talk you could talk about anything that was in the global test punch, which was the fighting mechanics, how it works. Most of the characters, I don't, if not all of them. No, I think it was most of the characters, like 6 or 7. Yeah, I tried it and I liked it. I got very frustrated at a certain point because I was just going up against like 3 people in my in my room that were all going as Ninjara, and I felt like Ninjara is pretty cheap, at least at first, when you're not super familiar with all the moves, because they're just
Sure,
jumping.
I mean, it's like
Yeah, they're jumping, they're teleporting,
sorry.
they're doing a throw move over and over and over, and it was working a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. But I really liked the way it's set up in terms of the public rooms, at least in this party mode where.
See, now that stuff I didn't really do. Like I was playing with like local with my brother and stuff. It seems fun. The actual gameplay seems pretty cool. You do wonder how much depth there is ultimately going to be to it. And sometimes there is depth in simplicity, so that can work out fine.
People are still playing
I do
paper rock
worry
scissors.
about. Yeah, I do worry about like how much is there in the package, because there's not a whole lot there besides play against people, right? There's not any kind of significant single player content, or you don't have an Injustice 2 campaign mode, that's for sure.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, they're definitely leaning more towards the like the Overwatch style of having very interesting characters, and then
Right, but like unlike Overwatch, I mean, I don't know, you still don't have like the customization, at least in Overwatch, or the hope of getting these loot boxes, right? So it's literally going to be the only reason to play, I think, is because you want to like
right.
it.
And I think that's it's a big thing to write a whole game on. Splatoon had its single player. I think a lot of people kind of thought like if you don't like the multiplayer, you shouldn't get that game. But that single player was substantial. that game did fine. I think though that the shooter mechanics, the team based mechanics of Splatoon might have made it more appealing than Arms will be to a lot of people. Not to say that Arms is not to say it's unappealing. It is attractive in terms of the way it looks and the way it plays. It just, I think that head to head confrontation is something that I'm not always going to be in the mood for, like I am for something like Splatoon, or Mario Kart, or a million other
Yeah,
Nintendo
yeah,
games.
that's the kind of thing. Is this the next Splatoon? I don't think so. I think it's a fun, neat little thing, probably.
Yeah, I mean it's
But
definitely high
we'll see.
quality. It's got a lot of polish so
Yeah, it's
far.
it's a Nintendo game for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of that. It's very appealing and it's fun. I just wonder how much is there.
Right.
How
Okay.
far can you take this concept?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
We'll find out for sure pretty soon. So let's get into the news. First up, Ubisoft had their big reveal for Far Cry 5. This is one of those things that we have been talking about for weeks as well. We don't have to go too far into this. It is what we sort of expected. It takes place in America. It's still the Far Cry games where you're going to be traveling around fighting against guys in jeeps with AK-47s or whatever. Only those guys are going to be cultists who are in Montana in the Mountain West, and it's which is visually it's at least at first quite a bit different than what we're used to for this series.
Right. I'm still worried that this is going to just turn out to go to these cultists' camps and clear them out and climb their radio towers, but we'll see.
Yes, I really hope so. There's a moment in one of the trailers, like the big reveal trailer, where it just
I'm trying to
pans.
watch that trailer, by the way, and it says that video is not available in my country, so that's interesting. They
Yeah,
don't want the Americans to see this anymore because
yeah,
they're tired of all their yelling, I guess.
yeah, exactly. All our change.org petitions. Yeah, so they had a moment where they just panned across a baseball diamond, a sandlot, and it was like, okay, just kind of having that visual American metaphor of a baseball diamond that looks like it's regularly used, but not like super expensive or anything like that. That setting has a lot of potential to do a lot of interesting things, especially since they have. You're right. The previous Far Cry games were just like you go to these camps, you clear them out, and then that's that. There was always the potential to do something more complicated with who are these people that are trying to take over this area, and it seems like something you couldn't avoid in a game that takes place in America just based on who you're selling it to, which is kind of shitty. Like, really, isn't that they should have done this work for the games with brown people, but maybe they'll do it for American white people or whatever. But yeah, it's so I'm interested in it in this game just for that. However, I think that you're right. I wouldn't get my hopes up too high that Ubisoft's going to be able to do a lot more with it than just use this as a new coat of paint, a new skin for the same exact stuff.
Yeah, we'll see. So I was excited about Primal, like, oh, this is a really interesting, different setting. Wow, and that was still so similar to everything that came before it, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Bring back Blood Dragon, man. That's where it was at.
Yeah, I really
Oh
hope
man.
they do something similar for like the one in between again to Blood Dragon. I understand like Primal actually sold really well, so they'll want to do a full $60 game again. But Blood Dragon 2 would be pretty cool. All
Oh
right.
yeah.
The Witcher 3 sold better in Q1 2017 than it did in the same period of 2016. So this is just a quick story, but it kind of just shows that I think we're in a period of time where I don't think we said this a few weeks ago about something else, but games are having longer and longer tails. There was a point
I
where
mean, Grand Theft Auto 5 was always the best example. This
yeah,
past whatever.
yeah, we were at a certain point in time. It was like if a game's not brand new, it had no chance of really doing a lot of business. Now, clearly, games like The Witcher, games like Grand Theft Auto. I mean, and these are still big games, but it is a departure from the way the business worked, 10 years ago. That they could still sell. They're still going to have a lot of appeal for a long time, and they aren't getting huge discounts. And I'm not sure if this is like the better
Sure.
if it's sold better in terms of units or dollars, but either way, it's impressive. And it's kind of something I think Nintendo has always tried to do. They're like the one company.
But yeah, they've always been pretty good at that.
They've always believed in the tales of games like Mario Kart and New Super Mario, brothers or whatever. But now I think it seems like everyone else is catching on. One question about this, and then we'll move on. Do you think that this means we'll get fewer games like this? Like the cadence of releases will be less frequent?
I mean, a little bit. It's already kind of happened, right? Like, it's been a longer wait for Red Dead Redemption 2 than I would have thought.
Yeah.
It's been a longer wait for Elder Scrolls 6. It seems like it's going to be even longer than I had thought. Yeah, I think for sure.
It's probably a confluence of things.
That's
it's
fine.
probably yeah, no, totally. It's probably the fact that these games are selling better for longer periods of time, but also like Grand Theft Auto has Grand Theft Auto Online. So it's all these different factors coming together that enable these games to take longer to come out.
They're just also harder to make.
Yeah, and that's fine. If they get a bigger return on investment on these games, it kind of pushes out that period of time where eventually game prices are going to have to go up from 60 to whatever, it feels like that's still going to happen eventually, but I don't know how they get away with it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
At this point, everyone's going to be so mad.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Prices go for everything else but video games, apparently.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. PlayStation 3 production has ended in Japan.
10-year life cycle jokes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a little bit longer than that, right? Didn't it come out in 2006? Maybe it was 2007.
Yeah, but I mean,
no,
production always go longer than quote unquote life cycles. But hey,
right.
There it is.
And doesn't it feel though that like the last gen consoles have been forgotten a little bit more quickly than in previous generations?
Oh, it happened like immediately,
right?
And it's this very weird thing because there's usually this grace period between like the console still being kind of relevant and then like it becomes a little retro, right? Right. It's like this weird thing like not too long ago, like oh, the GameCube and PlayStation 2 stuff's retro now, and it's like the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 are in this very strange place right now. It's like so many of those games that you would want to play on there, you could probably just get on Steam for $10 and play on there anyways.
Yeah.
It's like I don't like I like going to like old video game stores and stuff like that. I just try to imagine like what's the market for like old PlayStation 3s going to be like in 10 years. Is that going to be as big a market as it has been for like older systems? I'm sure at some way it will, but right now it's just hard to imagine because just again there's that and just so many of the games we are getting now are just kind of games that were like those games but maybe different or better. I don't know. But I guess you could say that about every generation. It seems that way.
I was going to say I guess you could always imagine like, oh man, who's going to care about these games? This is the one generation where it's like, oh, there's not going to be that much retro nostalgia. But I think you're right. There is something different this time around. And I think you nailed it when you said like some of these games are they're on Steam sales for $10 and people don't consider them part of some lost generation. A lot of gamers who play on games on PC just think of these as, this is part of a continuum of games that we've had for quite some time now.
Right, what would the big games from there be? Like BioShock, right? Okay, yeah. It's BioShock for $5.
That's another point. Like we've got a lot of HD remakes too of all the biggest of a lot of the biggest games.
Uncharted would be one of the big ones. I mean, it seems like the only real big one is Red Dead Redemption 1. It's like you can't get it on PC, and they never made like an HD version of it.
Right. Yeah.
So save your Xbox 360 for that, I guess. I don't know. Even then, it's backwards compatible now. So.
I think there's going to be more nostalgia for the Wii U than there will be for like the PS3.
You're not wrong.
Maybe even the 360.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
There's more nostalgia for like the Dreamcast than there is for like the original Xbox. So
yeah, exactly.
But
yeah,
not unusual.
Yeah, that's another good example of that. Monster Hunter Double Cross coming to Nintendo Switch.
Double Cross apparently.
Is that a double entendre? Is it double cross like someone's being double crossed, or is it just Japanese don't like saying X?
Jeff, I'm sure they thought the two X's looked cool together, and that's it.
Okay, all right, that's all I need because they do.
Who's double crossing who? The monsters.
Do you remember when you first learned about pornography and you like learned that like there was the rating system like X, double X, and triple X? Do you remember that when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Have you ever? Beyond like hearing that was a thing, I've never in my life, as an adult, as as a pervy teenager or whatever, come across double X pornography. I don't know what that would even entail.
I think very shortly after like that happened, by the time we were looking at pornography, not that we ever did, but in theory, of course not. I think it was already the whole NC-17 thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Just on the internet, so it didn't need ratings.
Yeah. Right? The lawless waste. Yeah. That's what
exactly. So
I
I think
think of when I
that's
see Monster Hunter Double X or whatever. This is a big deal.
yeah.
This is a big deal.
Oh yeah.
This game is
It was
single-handed.
inevitable, but a big deal.
Yes, both true things. It was single-handedly responsible for Nintendo's stock prices just like zooming straight up, like a straight line up, because everyone's like, "Oh, this is the game that's going to make the Switch a must-have device in Japan," which is something that the PlayStation 4 is not. I mean, Xbox One, we know that's not a must-have thing in Japan. It's kind of dead on arrival there. But the PlayStation 4 is sold okay. I think it's nearing 5 million units sold, which is not great, but it's not terrible. The Switch could, though, with Monster Hunter Double Cross, could surpass that this year. So that's a huge deal. I mean, I don't have any fondness for this series. I think I might try this just because it'll be on a system that I like playing games on.
Yeah, it's like I play them every now and then. They're kind of fun, but yeah, I don't have like any kind of crazy love for it.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely a big deal. It's gonna sell systems.
It also makes me wonder what the another thing that makes me wonder what Nintendo's online is going to be, because I know a lot of people like playing this online with friends.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hopefully they can support this kind of stuff. All right, moving on. Near Automata. I can never say this word the first time. Automata, because you have to say it like.
I know. I always want to say automata, and I'm like, no, automata is a word. What am I doing?
It's like Manamana.
Yeah. Near
Automata. Yeah. Near Manamana.
Automata.
Shipments and digital sales top 1.5 million copies. That's pretty good. I think we had some sales stories about this game not too long ago, but once again, it continues to sell really well. That's
and it's cool because it's pretty much all just word of mouth. Like it's good, and that's why people
yes.
care about it. Right?
I don't think I've
There's
ever
no
seen
other
a
reason why
commercial
the
for
sequel
it.
to Nier. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, the sequel to Nier, all these things. I mean, it looks. I mean, people don't even really know what it is until they have someone tell them. So yeah, it is word of mouth. Yeah, it's doing really well. It kind of makes me excited for maybe people taking a lot more risks on the consoles to see what else they could bring out and maybe find success with.
Yeah, it is cool that this kind of like, and it's not like weird in like a nonsense, just weird to be weird way, but it is kind of a weird, interesting game.
Yeah,
it's nice to see it succeed.
Idiosyncratic. It has its own style and its own way of doing things. Yeah.
There's a $10 word.
Yeah. Xbox Game Pass launches June 1st. Includes over 100 games at launch. Free 14-day trial for everyone. I believe it is $10 a month. The Netflix of video games. So probably a term that I think has been thrown around a bunch. Do you have any interest in this? I think the bigger games are like Halo. What's the Mad Max game or whatever. Things like that. Gears of War.
It's called Mad Max. So.
The Mad Max spin-off game. Whatever. Eat shit.
What Mad Max spin-off game? What are you talking about? The Mad Max game that's called Mad Max?
Is it just Mad? Is there no subtitle? I thought it was like Mad Max something.
Yeah, it's just called Mad Max.
The movie, the new movie that was way more important than this game has a subtitle. So you figure the game is going to have a subtitle, but they just called Mad Max.
Yeah.
Video games are there's so much hubris.
When that game was coming out, they kind of tried to distance themselves from the new movie in some weird ways. Like, I don't know why, because everyone liked it a lot. And it was definitely very popular.
Maybe they thought it would be like...
It must have been a weird licensing thing.
Or expectations. Maybe they're worried about expectations because the movie was so good.
I think it was because when they were making it, they didn't see the new movie. They were looking at, like, Road Warrior and stuff like that.
Right.
So, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, they don't want to... They're like, oh, this show
are you downloading these games or are you streaming them? How's this working?
Downloading. So you download them, you have them on your hard drive, and you have them as long as you keep up your subscription. So, $120. That's 2 new games, and that's $120 for the year. You pay monthly, but the point is it's the same price as you would pay for 2 games over the course of a year. And through that, you get access to 100 games, and maybe you'll play like 4, 5, 6 of those. Maybe some people...
4, yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's still better than the price you might have ended up paying otherwise. It seems like a good thing if you are getting a new Xbox One right now, or a new console, period, and you're looking at both systems, and you're like, hey, both of them have their games with gold and PlayStation Plus, instant library. They both have that, and you're going to need that anyhow because it comes with like multiplayer, so you're probably going to end up getting those games. That's fine, that's even. But then this other thing, you just $10 more, and you get this whole library of games that aren't going to go away each month. They're always there. It seems like a pretty good marketing thing for Microsoft to say, hey, here's why you want to choose an Xbox One. Even if they don't have these exclusives, it's like a lot of the third-party games might end up on there.
Yeah, something like this had to happen at some point. You wonder how well it's going to do. It's like one of the reasons, I guess, like against the whole Netflix of gaming idea is that on Netflix, you watch a show, it's 30 minutes long, or an hour. You watch a movie, it's maybe 2 hours long. You can kind of cycle through a lot of these things. A game, especially now with the whole games as service thing, a lot of times that game is a big investment of time. So maybe in some weird way you feel better just like buying the game you're going to play. But still, I mean, like you said, even if you're just playing 3 of them, that's still probably a good value. The other thing too is like the library has to be big and has to be good. It says includes over 100 games. Is that enough? Like, obviously, that's like theoretically enough to keep people entertained, but is it enough to kind of wow them, right? Because you kind of need that Netflix sense of wow, everything's on here, it's huge, like there's so much stuff. So
I think it's the right number. If you say over 100 games, that has a certain cachet in our brains.
It's better than over 80, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like super way better than 80. If it's like way better than like 95. Just in the way it sounds, I think. In terms of the quality and stuff like that, I don't think it's there. But that number goes a long way. And I think Microsoft knows that, which is why it's like over 100 games and not like comes with Halo and Mad Max. Like in the marketing material, that stuff is there, but the 100 games number is way more the focus. And I think they actually are looking at Netflix because you get the sense that Netflix has all this stuff. But if you go looking for movies and you're like, oh, I want to watch some of my favorite movies, I bet you 9 out of 10 times your favorite movies aren't on Netflix. It's just it's just not, they don't care to maintain those rights. That's not something they're actually going for because they already have given you the sense that they do have everything. It's big enough, it's expansive enough, and a lot of it is crap. And I think a lot of these games are probably not very good. You get into the weeds really quick if you start going down this list. I don't have it in front of me, but we've only mentioned a couple of the ones that are highlights, and then everything else is kind of like you take it or leave it. But I think in terms,
it's like, and we were saying this before, it's like you feel like you don't have time to play okay games anymore. So a service where you pay a monthly fee to play okay games, like 100 okay games, who cares?
Right. I think you're right to a point, but I think they're right on the line of being able to convince quite a few people that it is a good enough deal. And then once people get hooked into it, if they start delivering new games monthly or even bi-monthly every couple months, and people are afraid of losing the games that they're halfway finished with, and they're like, oh, I'm going to go back to that, they're going to maintain their subscriptions, and I think it could work. At the very least, I hope it introduces competitors from companies like Sony so that we can maybe get even better games on each side. Yeah. But hopefully they also announce a bunch of new games for the service at E3, which is something I expect them to do. But 14-day free trial, I'm at least going to try it out and see what I think. Finally, last news story: Final Fantasy VII Remake shifts toward internal development.
What does this mean? So
what does this mean?
They're not outsourcing things. I guess that they were outsourcing a lot of things, and now.
Yes.
What a weird thing to announce. Yes. They are desperate to give people any news on this.
I don't even know if was it announced. I guess they were like talking about it in like a public stream of some sort. I honestly don't know how this news got out there. But it is a weird thing to just like make a big deal out of. It just like, okay. Previously, we had some schmoes working on it, and now Square Enix is actually making this game that most people care about more than any other Square Enix game in the last 10 years. So yeah, it's a weird one, and I'm not really sure what to make of it other than, okay, yeah, this game's really not coming out until 2020.
No, not anytime soon.
I think they gave like a time frame, and it was like 2018 to 2020. It was like the time frame or something like that. So it's even they're like, oh yeah, we're going to start hedging those bets early. Okay, Mr. Minotti, I think it's time we take a break. Is that okay with you?
Okey-doke. No.
You gotta go to the little boys' room?
I'm okay. Thank you, though, for asking.
I just like to check. I like to check on my little Mikey,
Usually I'm like filled with fluids, but I've been, I've been very
keeping those
passive.
sodium levels high.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, all right. Okay, we're going to go to break. When we come back, we are going to be talking about Nintendo at E3, what they're going to have, what we expect, what we hope for, things like that. And yeah, we'll be right back. All right, Michael Minotti. So, we want more good video games, right?
No. Oh, yes.
God, okay. We practiced this. You're supposed to say yes.
Yes, we want, yes.
Yes,
Okay,
and
yes.
we took improv classes and everything. They're already going to shit. Mike,
Yes, Jeff, but how will they ever learn to make them?
well, there's a resource online that Intel provides at software.intel.com/gamedev that will help people make games better, more efficient, with a lot more flair and polish. And Intel wants to help people do this. That's why they set this whole thing up. And it's there. It's there. You could just go there right now. Let's say even if you wanted to make video games, which we know you don't because you don't say yes and. You never do. But if you were, and if you were going to make games, you just go to Intel or software.intel.com/gamedev and they'll help you out. Does that sound pretty good?
Wow, I'm going to sign up right now.
Thank you. See, that's all I've ever asked for. I'm gonna tear.
Happy.
I'm like tearing up a little bit. It feels really good.
Yeah,
One more
I'm
time.
playing along today.
Yeah, one more time. That URL is software.intel.com/gamedev. Check that out. Thanks to Intel for sponsoring the show. And we're going to get right back into our program right now. Okay, Mike. Nintendo.
Hey.
What does it mean,
Ooh, I like that.
Nintendo?
It means something about heaven. It means leave luck to heaven, I think is what they say.
It's Stairway to Heaven.
That's
That's
means.
exactly right, yeah. So they're going to be at E3, and we kind of know what to expect in a very broad sense, and that is Mario. Now, beyond Mario Odyssey, which is a very, very exciting thing, I think I guess we could lead off our discussion with that. And we definitely mentioned this as well before, but I hope that they have a whole Mario setup, just like they had a Zelda setup last year, with the Mushroom Kingdom and everything. What do you think the chances are of that?
It'll be New Dunk City.
Okay, man, don't say that. Now I really have my heart set on.
They're gonna have the city there. It's gonna be great.
Oh man, I really hope they have New Donk
They're gonna
City.
have the signposts up with everything. There's gonna be Cranky Lane and all that.
Yeah, I'm desperate to get my hands on with that that game, like really bad. But I would also just lose my mind if I walked in and the first thing I saw was like big signs that said New Donk City and yeah, all that crazy stuff. We know about that game. Do you have any ideas what they're going to have beyond that? Do you think they're going to have this Mario and Rabbids Mushroom Quest game or whatever it's called that's been leaked recently?
Well, they will. Yeah, it'll be there. For better or worse, I guess. I don't know. What do you think of that whole thing?
I think it's probably going to be actually a very good game. I bet even if it is made by Ubisoft. I'm not I'm not totally anti Rabbids because I didn't let them like consume me back in the Wii days. There was maybe too many games, but it was easy enough to ignore. And I there's a part of me that's like a really like weird like loyal shitty gamer that's like, oh well, the Rabbids came before the Minions, so that's better. They're like older and are more original. So that in a way they're like actually kind of cool. Like that's my brain process, and I know it's completely wrong and absurd, but in my mind it works like that. So I can kind of get over a little bit. But some of this art.
Sorry.
No, just real quick. Some of this art is kind of like the Princess Toadstool or whatever, the Princess Peach Rabbid, who's kind of dressed up like her, and the Luigi Rabbid.
Giving a selfie.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Aren't you a little surprised? Like Nintendo's usually, somewhat protective of its IP, that it would just be like fully on board with this Rabbids crossover, and not just like, yeah, you can have a franchise. Here's a Mario. Put them in a Rabbids game where, yeah, they have guns. It's a turn-based
They
RPG with
have
guns.
guns. What? That's the thing I really am having a hard time.
They have arm cannons.
Yeah, like I don't know if
Like
that.
Mega Man.
I think that image is a pitch image. It sounds like it was an internal pitch image, so it's the final product will probably look a lot different. And I imagine it won't have guns because that is just so hard for me to believe that Nintendo not only was like, "Hey, Ubisoft, make a Mario
It
game."
doesn't look like a pitch image to me. It looks like a promotional image. I think it's having guns.
Man,
That's a promotional.
that's going to be
image, man.
that's going to be very shocking to me if that actually turns out to be the case. But I mean, yeah, if that is a promotional image, that's the case. It's just so weird.
Also,
like,
if you're gonna have guns, why isn't it actually? It's not a shooting game though, but it is a turn-based RPG. People say, right?
yeah, like,
So if they're gonna have guns, at least like make it. I don't know. You shoot.
but yeah, or like just like instead of a gun, just give him like a fire flower that he holds that shoots out the fireballs. Like it's like not that insane.
Well, it's like what they talked about with because back when they were making the first Mario RPG, right? Like Square first, like gave Mario like a sword and put him like a horse, like because it's an RPG, and I was like, no, let's give him a hammer, and
Right.
like, that'll be fine. It's just like that same conversation should have happened here.
Yeah, yeah, that's
I
what
mean, they're kind of Mario themed guns. Like it looks like a bullet bill. I don't know. It looks like Luigi's gun kind of looks like his vacuum thing, maybe. It's like
Maybe.
it's like there's Yoshi with angry eyes shooting an energy bazooka. And it's like, what is this?
Yeah, so a lot of that stuff is just it's not coalescing in my brain in a way that makes me feel comfortable at all. But
Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it'll be fantastic.
but at the same time, yeah, at the same time, I bet the game's going to turn out to be a lot of fun. I mean, Nintendo's not going to. I mean, even if they are letting him do all this other crazy stuff, they're not going to back off enough to like let Ubisoft like just squat out some piece of garbage. It's going to have a lot of high quality gameplay because that's just Nintendo gets involved with their third party collaborators. So I would expect that from them. But yeah, I mean, if that game is coming, it'll be there, and that'll be one of the other games that Nintendo will have on the show floor. Do we kind of know anything beyond these two games though that are kind of sure things?
Probably. Well, Splatoon 2 is a sure thing. There's not gonna be a
Right.
whole lot because it's coming out pretty soon.
Yeah,
Nothing
July.
shocking. There's the Fire Emblem game. We might see some of that because that's coming to Switch.
Right.
They announced it. We don't know much about it. Then at that point, it's like, what are things that aren't announced that we might be expecting? I think the most obvious is Smash Brothers, like some kind of port of the Wii U version, like a deluxe version, just like with Mario Kart. We talked about before why we think that should be happening and why it probably will happen.
Yep.
It's like a point where if it doesn't happen here, I guess it just isn't happening nearly as soon as we thought. But I kind of expect to see it happen here.
Right. The latest rumors on that is that it will include stages from both the 3DS and Wii U game, which there was
cool.
some games that weren't crossover there, so that'll be neat. And that's a game that it's happening. That's got to happen. Nintendo knows like that's
Why not?
For the audience that so there's a lot of people that buy Nintendo consoles just to play Mario Kart. Mario Kart's this huge thing with a lot of kind of quasi-casual gamers. There's this other audience that doesn't care about Mario Kart that is, hardcore into one game, and that game is Smash Brothers. And a lot of them are still playing Melee, but those are like the guys that are playing every single day. There's an audience that played a lot back in college or whatever, and they want to keep up, and they got the game on 3DS. If they had a Wii U, they got the game on Wii U, and they will get it on Switch because it's the game they play. It's the game and if there's a new one, they're going to buy it. So Nintendo's going to serve that audience, and it's going to be this year, and it's going to come out like right around the time of Mario proper. So yeah,
That's the other big holiday game, probably.
Exactly. Yes, and that's a good 1-2 punch. A re-release of a popular Wii U game that maybe not everyone played, and then this brand new Mario platformer. I guess then after this, we can start getting into more speculation about what games they could be bringing back, new stuff.
Like you assume there's got to be one big announcement, and maybe Smash Bros. Could just be that. Depends
Right.
how much they're adding, but people will be excited about that.
Yeah, the longer they go without announcing
the-
that game before E3, the more it starts to feel like that's going to be like their big announcement at E3. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. Well, you get to wonder what franchises are there they could make big announcements for. Zelda already happened. Mario's coming. They're not going to announce a 2D Mario game while we're waiting for the 3D one, in all likelihood. So the other two big things, I mean, there's Pokemon, and people. There's always been that Pokemon Star rumor, which I think has been more of a rumor of just like of like a logical one as opposed to one that's actually based in like a leak or something. Like people are just thinking, oh, they'll probably do that because it makes sense.
Right. It's an implicit, like there's like a lot of implicit detective work going on there, but there's no explicit reasons that we've seen for why it's going to happen. But yeah, I'm right there with you where it makes sense, and what a lot of people are saying about it makes sense, but I don't see any necessarily hard evidence or reasons why we should believe that Nintendo's actually going to do it, at least this year.
And I mean, people say like, oh, well, it makes so much sense to help them sell so many Switches. Well, it would have been true for any other Nintendo system, and they've never made a full, they never released one of the main Pokemon games on those. So
Right.
I'm still a little skeptical of that.
At least this year. I think it'll happen next year, but this year, I'm just not sure.
Maybe. The kind of like, it's less popular overall outside of like the main gaming community, but Metroid's the other like hopeful, right? Everybody's hoping for a big Metroid announcement. I would really like that. It definitely feels like it's time. It's been a long time. You have this new system. It's something you can get people excited about. It's also been like enough time that people are like, a lot of people didn't like Other M, but people are kind of over it now. I'd be happy for that.
The thing about Metroid is that there's no reason, so there's a lot of these other Nintendo games, and there's reasons they won't happen. Like a new Star Fox. We just got one on Wii U not too long ago. I mean, it was a few years, but it was recent, like it's far more recent than Metroid, if you're not counting Metroid Prime or Metroid Hunters or whatever the hell it was on 3DS. Pikmin. Federation Force, yeah, that garbage. Pikmin, there's a 3DS game coming out pretty soon. I think Punch-Out, they're probably not going to do a Punch-Out because there's ARMS, and ARMS looks like it's going to fill in that slot. Animal Crossing's going to they got to get the mobile version out before they do a new console version. Maybe Kirby, but Kirby's not.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a Kirby game at some point.
Right, Kirby could be in there, and it's not going to necessarily. It won't change anything. It'll just be like, okay, yeah, there's a Kirby.
Like I'll like Kirby and like have fun playing it. I don't know if it's something like you get excited about per se.
Yeah. And then I mean, you mentioned Fire Emblem. They already announced that. Maybe we'll hear about that. Like Pilot Wings. That seems like a series. Like if they're gonna do Pilot Wings, why wouldn't they just do like something like F-Zero or something like that and kind of bring that series?
And speaking of F-Zero, seems like maybe the other one that there's not a good reason why not.
Right.
Except, I don't know. There actually isn't one. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because they think
those series have always coexisted.
Yeah, they're like, well, we already have Mario Kart, but I don't necessarily agree with that.
Those are different enough.
Yeah, I mean, then there's just maybe a few other things like Golden Sun, Wario, Donkey Kong.
Yeah, there's like the weird things like maybe there'll be another Kid Icarus game in this.
Kid Icarus, maybe. Yeah.
But again, there's nothing there except like maybe because why not? Whereas Metroid, it just seems like that time is there, like the anticipation is there. You have the new system, you can kind of do something there.
Yeah, all those other ones I mentioned, I can like see in my head, like Nintendo saying, "Oh, well, we don't need to do that right now because of this or this and that or that." But Metroid, they're out of excuses now. If they're not doing it, it's because they just don't want to do it, and they're not going to do it, right? Like that's the only reason.
Yeah, it's like at this point now, if we don't hear something about Metroid soon, it's like that system, that like series just is full on in like hibernation for whatever reason. Right. I know some of the like Other M was just like and they can make up bad reasons. Like they say, oh, Other M didn't sell that well. Well, people didn't like Other M. You could say Federation Force and sell it. Well, no one wanted Federation Force.
Yeah. You know damn well why that.
Do you believe Other M came out 2010? It's been a long time since we've
7 years. Yeah.
I wonder if this is as big. It's almost as long as the gap we had between like Super Metroid and Metroid Prime. Like, and that felt forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was like a huge gap. It's always weird. It's like I think everybody. We always think that Metroid is a bigger deal than it is because it seems like it has like a.
Because it's so well in Japan, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Like the entire Metroid series has sold. This is according with the over 17.44 million copies. That's the entire series. That's not I mean, it's good in a way, but for a series like that, you would expect
Right.
maybe a bit more.
I'm starting to get to a point where I'll be okay if they never make a 3D high budget Metroid Prime game ever again. It just okay. If you're not going to do that, this series is the perfect way to say, hey, the Switch is also our portable, and we're going to do a lot of those like like a high budget portable game that we used to do on the 3DS with 2D side scrolling graphics with beautiful visuals. Just a good gameplay as you remember all this other stuff that would have been a huge hit on the 3DS. Those can still exist on the Switch, in the form of Metroid. Here you go. Here it is. Here's proof. It's perfect for that. So I would hope they would at least do that if they're not going to spend all the money to make a giant 3D.
Well, I mean, it's like there's all these very small indie studios making these fantastic Metroidvanias. I find it hard to believe Nintendo couldn't like put together some team that in a couple of years could make a really good 2D Metroid game.
Right.
These days.
Yeah, and I mean,
that seems like it should be a very easy investment for them.
Yeah, and I would die for that. Like I really love that series, and I hope they find a way to kind of bring it back. Yeah, but beyond that, we've kind of touched on everything else that they could do, at least from their past. I mean, feels like they've got ARMS coming out like right before E3.
And right then after or something. It's very close. Yeah.
Yeah, right in that range. So maybe they won't feel the pressure to announce another new franchise, but they've been doing a little bit better on that. Splatoon and ARMS, and those kind of came out like 2 years apart, 3 years apart, in that range. So maybe they're going to wait a little bit before they have another new thing.
I guess the only other thing that is a maybe is Mario Maker. You think that happens? Or you think that's another year? I think that might be another year.
I think that's another year. I mean, I would love it to come out, but they don't. I know a lot of people are like, Switch needs games, but I don't. It seems like it's got a lot of stuff, in terms of just the indie games kind of filling in gaps between these big Nintendo releases, to the point where it doesn't really need games other than the ones it has, and then if it gets, especially if it gets Smash Brothers, things like that. If they have Smash Brothers and Mario Odyssey at the holidays, they don't need another Mario game.
That's about it. That's all you need almost.
Yeah, exactly. And they could just hold off.
The server's like super big.
Right. Do you think Zelda Maker is the thing that they come out and announce? It's the big thing.
I would still expect to see just Mario Maker 2 first because it'd be easier to do.
Yeah, it's easier to kind of figure out how that works because they've already done it. And in terms of like bringing in, like even if they were to bring in Doki Doki Panic or whatever, that's easier to do than to figure out Zelda Maker, because Zelda Maker is going to be a lot more complicated.
Sure.
One last thing on Nintendo. I was listening to another podcast. I think it was like John Bomb's Beastcast, maybe. And they were talking about the Rabbids game, the Nintendo Rabbids game, and they're like, that it's going to be Wario and Waluigi bringing in the Rabbids into the Mushroom Kingdom as like a money-making scheme. And I got really angry because that's such a perfect idea, and that's not going to be what actually happens in the game.
No.
I would die to have Wario and Waluigi in like a Mario RPG game.
I would die for just some more Waluigi in general. Could we please get the Waluigi game already?
Yeah, give him his own game. Like what I was really hoping for instead of this Rabbids game was, instead of Mario and Luigi, like that series, Wario and Waluigi, that RPG, like that could revitalize it. There's so much good writing they could do. Like the Treehouse would nail that stuff. So, but that's probably not going to happen. That's especially with this coming out. So, whatever. More dreams dashed. Just give me Metroid, and I'll shut up about Advance Wars and Wario and Waluigi. And
Metroid really is the golden ticket, isn't it? That's like the instant. That's the card to instantly win E3 in a way, right?
Yeah, it's at least like any problems they have with a lot of other stuff. Like if they do bungle their online service, which odds are good that they're going to do that. Like in some way, they're going to have some weird online thing. Oh, yeah. If they got Metroid, that's what people are going to talk about. People are going to want to talk about Metroid, and that's. Yeah, I mean, kind of no matter what they do with it. If they do the 2D game, if they do the 3D game, people are going to be excited no matter what, because it just has such a...
Yeah, it almost doesn't matter, right?
Right.
Like with Mario, it's like, oh, is it 2D or 3D? It's a port of Metroid. It's like, that's all good.
Right. Yeah, either one. We're starving for either one. I guess one other thing. If Metroid isn't a thing, and Retro is still making something... Is it just something new? It can't be another Donkey Kong, right?
Donkey Kong Country 3. It could be. I don't know.
I guess it could be.
There's probably in some weird way, so better than their Metroid games, which might be depressing but true. I don't know.
All
How
right,
much did
Mike.
Donkey Kong Country Returns sell? That's a question I have.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
No, yeah, I was just going to start wrapping things up. That does it for Nintendo. We've now talked about all the major companies that are going to be at E3. Next week we will do that wrap up show, kind of do some final thoughts, and then we gotta start getting there. We're gonna have to start walking to LA if we're ever gonna get there on time. So
Right,
yeah,
I know. Gotta get going.
yeah, exactly. So that's happening soon. Please tune in next week for that. We're going to be back with more. I'm sure we'll have some interesting stuff. For now, though, thank you everyone for listening. Mike, why don't you tell people who are listening to you right now, to your voice, where they can find you on the internet?
That's what they're doing. You can find me at on Twitter as Tolkoto. That's Tolkoto. Also writing on GamesBeat all the time, so go there. And I'm also doing the Exploding Barrel podcast, which is another gaming podcast that I do with my brother. He's been doing it for almost 10 years now. That's at ebpodcast.com.
And I'm Mike Minotti. Okay, I see what you did here. I'm
That's
Mike
funny.
Minotti on Twitter, apparently, as well. No, I'm Jeff Grubb on Twitter, and I sometimes make videos on my YouTube page. Like I said, I put up the Star Trek one. I put up some ARMS gameplay as well. You can get that at youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb. Yeah, we're going to be back next week. Thank you for listening. Yeah, take it easy.
Bye.
Yes, and Mike.